today we're talking to Jim Gannon, draper and boot merchant of Main Street, Mohill. Hello, Jim.
Yes. How are you, Evelyn?
Can you tell me when Gannon's was established?
I can indeed. It was established by my late father, Tom Gannon, in the year 1896. He was a native of the general area and the parish of Annaduff, to be exact. And he had been working in Tadburns of Dublin, the big department store of that time, which is there still. That building is there still, at the bottom of Mary Street, now owned by Pennies. They were in that firm was in a very big way of business. They had a number of factories, employed about 1,200 people, of whom about 100 would be in the department store end of it. They were also very big in the wholesale trade business and had customers all over Ireland. And he gathered a little money together some way. I don't know how he did it, what bank he raided to steal it, where he got it, but he got a little anyway. And he came down here and started business in Mohill. He rented a premises that was previously in the drapery trade here. And he was a brave man to do so, because the two previous owners had gone bankrupt. So his prospect, I don't know why he decided on coming down and trying the business, but he turned out to be reasonably successful and carried on for 10 or 12 years in that premises that he rented. And the place next door, that is the house that we are now standing in, came on the market. The people went bankrupt too. A man named McGettrick was the owner of it, and they did a pretty extensive business. And he purchased it. That had been about 1908 or 1909, around that.
Well, can I just clarify, Jim?
Yes.
I mean, the shop, you have actually two shop fronts here.
Yes.
So that when your father came here, it would have been the other.
He was only one shop. That was the house premises next door to where we're now standing.
Yeah, who would have owned that previously?
It was the previous owner of it was a family named Cull. But they were not, sorry, excuse me, they were the owners of the premises, but the actual trader in it was a man named Lynch, who had been trading in it.
As a draper?
As the same business as my father carried on, and unfortunately that poor man got into financial trouble, and the business was closed up, and my father took it over and rented it out, again from Miss Cull, who was the owner of the premises. She in turn was a tenant of the Crofton estate, who were the owners of the town. And then he carried on there and was reasonably successful, and this business here, being next door to him, came on the market. The McGettricks went out of business, and he purchased this place from their estate, or whoever was selling it anyway. And he then became a tenant of the Crofton estate in this house, whereas he'd be only a subtenant in the house next door.
Could I ask you, would there have been a landlord's veto or licence on businesses at that time?
Well, I'm not aware that there was a licence as such, but you had to have the landlord's approval to take over the premises. They would have to have approved of you going into it. And I think that came as a matter of course, because naturally it would be in their interest to have a tenant in the premises and paying rent to them. And they came, would you be interested in hearing about the way they collected the rents or that?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. Well, they collected, the agent of the landlord estate were people called stewards. They were estate agents. Most auctioneers today call themselves estate agents. That derives from the fact that these people were purely estate agents. Stewards weren't auctioneers at all. Stewards in Dublin, they were pretty big people, and they were agents for a number of estates all around the country, including the Crofton estate. And they came down here twice a year, in April and October, to collect the rents. And the only notification the tenants of the area got, that would include, of course, a wide strip of the rural area as well as the town. There was a notice put up on a lamppost down beside the Church of Ireland to effect that Mr. R.L.S. Stewart would attend at the Castle Mohill on next Tuesday or Wednesday, whatever the day was, for the purpose of collecting rents due to the Crofton estate. And you had to go there And further thing, you had, the rents were small, of course.
How much?
Well, by the standards of the day. The rent on this house here, the ground rent was, it was about something under £2.
For how long?
I'm not able to answer you that now, but it was pretty lengthy.
Yeah.
It was lengthy. I think it was about £2 there. Now, a further thing I can tell you, you had to have the exact, it wasn't £2 exactly now, it was a broken amount, but you had to have the exact amount. If you went with £2, you got no change.
Right.
You see, you had to have the exact amount that was due,
Yeah.
and at that much anyway, and that was that. Furthermore, I recall him telling me that when he went into this place, he had to take off his hat going into this fellow
Yeah.
to pay his rent, who wasn't the landlord at all, it was only the agent. And I said to him, we used to call him Governor, and I said, Governor, would you know, soft easy to go in and take off your hat to this so-and-so, and he wasn't even the landlord. And he said to me, Jim, if you lived in those days, you'd take off your hat, or if you didn't, you'd get the bullet. You'd be evicted in a very short time. That's the world you were, the type of world you were living in.
Well, I suppose you wouldn't want to incur their displeasure, really.
Well, that would be it, of course. So poor man, like all others, he had to go and take off his hat or cap, whatever he had, and have his 13 and 4 pence or 26 and 8 pence exactly, or no change. You see, and that was twice a year. And if you didn't come, you were in serious trouble, because there was no safety of tenure, apparently, particularly with commercial property. There was safety of tenure on property, rural property, or among the farmers, but it didn't apply to commercial property. Not for a very long time afterwards.
Yeah.
You could be sacked out at any time for not paying your rent.
Would there be many other such businesses in the town, you know, in the Drapery line?
There were, will I give you the names of them?
Yeah.
Yeah, there were McCormick's next door to us here again, which is number one, and there was Gibson's across the street. They had two houses. They had a house directly across the street there where Pat Gallagher lives now, and they had another shop down beside the Church of Ireland. Then there was Ward's up where the upper end of the town there, where the bakery is now, and there was another one, Henry's, where Dolly Reynolds formerly was, above the bank, the two banks up there. And there was another one in Hyde Street, Nicholson's. That would be a bit. There was another man in the footwear business, John Redican, down here. There was plenty.
Seems to be a lot.
Yes, the area was well catered for. The public were well served.
Yeah. Did you serve an apprenticeship yourself?
I did indeed. That was the custom of the days. And usually the thing was, your father arranged it, your parents arranged it, and you took the period of apprenticeship was usually 3 years. It was pretty general all over, and in many cases your parents had to pay a fee to get into this, prepare yourself for this magnificent job that you were going to get in a few years' time, to work for half nothing. But we were no different to anybody else. That was life. What was life was about then, in those days. And I remember my late father, I finished school, I was at school in Newbridge, and I don't know why in Earth he sent me away, waste money and sending me to a boarding school, because it was all arranged in that time that I was the second eldest of the family. My elder brother Frank was a lawyer, or was destined to become a lawyer, and I was destined to take over the business. Now, why he was wasting money and sending me to boarding school, I don't know, in those terribly hard times. But we were in two schools. We were in a preparatory school in Clondalkin, run by the Cistercians. We spent 2 or 3 years there, and then we went on to Newbridge, and I finished my career, school career in Newbridge, and I came home here, and he decided, of course, as parents did at that time, I was going to be a draper, follow on and inherit this business. So I was working here for some time, and of course I wasn't too diligent anyway, and he decided he wasn't able to discipline me properly, and he'd send me away, which indeed would be a very wise thing to do, because the limit of the knowledge I would acquire here would be whatever he knew about business. Then business at that time, running a business at that time, was a much different type to what it is now, a much more difficult job. So he said about seeing where he was going to send me. And I remember he was going to send me to a house in Sligo. They're not there now, McDonough's I think was the name. And they wanted me to serve 4 years, so he wasn't having any of that.
Yeah.
And then I was going to Enniskillen, to House Tully's in Enniskillen, and they wanted 4 years, so he wouldn't have that. So finally, Arnott's, with whom he had a very good business relationship, arranged that I would go to a house in Drogheda called Anderson's. And Anderson's terms were only 2 years. So off I went, and I had no fee to pay there in Anderson's. And it was a big provincial house. There was a staff of about, there'd be 20 or there would be 25 or 30 working in it. He did a very, very magnificent business. And he was in the wholesale business in a small way too, in which he was traded as the Drogheda Linen Company. There was a Drogheda Linen Company, he purchased it, but he went out of the linen business and did an ordinary wholesale business in it. And I spent a total of, I was there altogether for 6 or 7 years and was very happy and loved Drogheda. And if any sort of a decent job I'd have stayed in Drogheda. some lucky girl, meet some lucky girl to marry there. But anyway,
were you paid during your apprenticeship?
I was, yes, and strangely for him it was different to most of them. After about 6 or 8 months I got some small payment. I think it was about £2 a month or something like that. It provided me with adequate pocket money by the standards of the day. And while I was there after a few years again, Anderson employed a very, very famous man, Mr. Ben Dunn, the owner, the previous owner of Dunn Stores, the man who established the business. And Ben was there for a number of years. He and I slept in the one room together. And we continued on there for about 6 or 7 years in it. And then I went to, he arranged that he got me into Todd Burns. So I worked in Todd Burns for another 7 or 8 years, or perhaps more. And from there I came home here. In Todd Burns, if you'd like to know the big wages I was earning at that time there, I was very highly paid. I was paid when I went to it, and I went as I say, a man with 6 or 7 years experience. I was no beginner. I was quite could be say, qualified and competent and experienced assistant. £2 a week.
Princely sum.
Yes, 30 shillings a week, basic fee, and there was a commission of 1 1/4%, which worked out at about, used to average about 10 shillings a week, took me up to £2. Now I paid £2 for my digs, and I remember, I can tell you some more, I remember my tram fares used to cost about 3 shillings, and my laundry 3 shillings. And it was a trade union subscription at that time, about 2 shillings. I think I had about a shilling left over after meeting the absolute necessities of life. So I can assure you now, I didn't give the girls in Dublin a very good time.
I was going to say that the entertainment part
was it was austere, to say the least of it. But I was happy in it. That went on for 12 months. But then my late father here clothed me. There, as I told you, they were in the wholesale business, and they had a wholesale account there, and I got whatever clothing I wanted. And as well as that, I was very fortunate because my late mother had inherited a legacy which was divided among the family, and I inherited a slice of it there, which by the standards of the day was pretty large by the standards of the day, which provided me with adequate income there. I was better off than most people were working and living in Dublin. But then I came home here. I came home here in 1940.
Right.
And
you more or less took over, did you?
Yes, I took over the business.
Gone to the shop with you in charge. Who would have been the suppliers of stock in general?
The principal suppliers were Todd Burns of Dublin and Arnott's of Dublin and Dwyer's of Cork. They would be the three. There were a number of other smaller suppliers, but they would be the principal ones. There weren't too many suppliers at that time. Business at that time was done there. You drew your supplies mainly from these big wholesale houses. They were very big. They were very big, both Arnott's and Todd Burns and Dwyer's, very big houses. And they employed travellers a number of travellers. Arnott's would have, and Todd's both would have 7 or 8 travellers calling here, not all together.
Yeah.
They would all have different departments, and they'd be coming in their turns. You'd have them about every 8 weeks. There was it was what was called an 8 weeks journey. Travellers would come, and it was a prize job in the drapery trade, a traveller for these houses, and they all had a big fine van and a driver. And the driver brought in all their samples, and they just stood here as a counter and showed their merchandise out to me and extolled its virtues and all the rest, and you decided what you were going to buy, and they wrote away like Billy-O, and that was that, and you got goods came down about 3 or 4 days afterwards, delivered it out to you.
Yeah.
And you paid your account, then you got usually 30 days credit, and if you paid it promptly, they generally gave you a 5% discount. And if you didn't pay that month, and if you took another month, you'd only get 2.5. And the third month, nothing. And the next was the solicitor, trying to collect their account.
Yeah, you could do that.
Hopefully it never happened here with us, but that was the system anyway.
Yeah.
There with
Well, at that time now you stocked what, materials, shoes?
At that time, there was a tremendous lot of piece goods sold. Tremendous lot of piece goods. People purchased cotton goods and woolen goods on the piece, and they made up varying garments, underwear, and men's shirts, and overalls for women, overalls for work around the house, and coatings. They would buy coats and make up their coats even, some of them. And if they were a bit better off, maybe they took the material to a dressmaker who made up their coats for them. So there's a tremendous lot of piece goods sold. And the big seller of all would be cotton piece goods. It was a tremendous seller to make overalls of varying types. So much so that we used to have it cut for the Thursday market, in the very, very big day. We'd have it cut in the lengths that we knew that people wanted. 2 1/4, 2 1/2, or 2 3/4 yards. And we piled on the counter. The idea of that was to get through your business expeditiously. Because Thursday, the market here was on a Thursday. And there was a tremendous flow of customers. 80% of our business for many years after I came home was done on Thursday. So you'd be overwhelmed. Then was a very big, as well as that, a big population around here, and you'd be overwhelmed with people coming in buying goods, usually small lots, because they hadn't very much money, of course, at that time. But that was the way it was, and having the goods cut in the lengths they wanted saved a lot of trouble. It was there on the counter, and they picked out what they wanted.
Are you saying then, let's say, if a man came in for the makings of a suit now, that your father would, or you, would cut it out for him, would measure him?
Well, there were 2 ways of doing it. There were a number of tailors around the country tailors. In Clune now there was one, and all that area out there, there's another one away up in Gartletter, and all the church areas. You can take it, there was at least one tailor in it. He was kept pretty busy. And many of them sold their own material, but they would also make it up. You bring the material to you, and they could come into us, and we would have the suit lengths here, and the search through them, I'd show them out to them, and they were cut in 3.5 yard lengths. 3.5 made a man's suit, and he chose his length, and we made it up and we trimmed it for him, sent him all the trimmings, and off he went to his tailor, and he got it made up.
So you didn't actually cut out anything?
No, we never cut out any. But there was another method of trading grew up around that time, and it was we measured the man. We'd have either the material, which he would select, or we would have swatches of what we call swatches of patterns. A swatch bin, a bundle of patterns all clamped together, and he'd go through them and he'd pick out his make his choice from the materials that were there. And we would I would measure him, and I had a form then setting out all the varying measurements that were needed. And the people we used to send it off were in leads, film called cameras of leads. And it shows you the way things have changed. You go to a tailor today, if you did go to a tailor and he could keep you 1 month's waiting to have a garment made up or anything done with it. If I posted, or my late dad posted, the measurement for him, together with the pattern number, that's all he had on the measurements on it, and it was posted here before there was a second midday post went out from here. It was called the English Mail, went out about 3 o'clock. And if we posted that measurements to Cameras and Leeds by 3 o'clock, you could guarantee your customer that the finished suit would be back here the following Saturday. And it would be back if there was any rush about it. And many times. They also had an express service, which was used in case of sudden deaths often. And they had a code for all the measurements. And you could send it by telegraph off to them together, and it would be back by Tuesday. Right. Say you send it on a Saturday, we telegraph it here on a Saturday, you'd have it back in 3 days. Wow. A remarkable service that they all gave. Was that business went on for a good long time, and then gradually, bit by bit, the ready-made trade took over, and of course there's no such thing. You can see as tailoring now, virtually it's gone, it's dead.
Yeah. What about shoes then?
The shoes we supplied at that time, they came from Dwyer, a firm of Dwyers, the Lee Boot Company in Cork. They were our principal suppliers, and they were owned by Dwyers of Cork. They were our principal suppliers. My late father bought the bulk of his footwear there from them. And the shoes, the footwear that was sold, the big seller was nailed boots. I don't know if you ever saw nailed boots.
I did.
No, did you?
I did.
Did you? Yeah. Well, the popular one for men was a great big heavy one, and it had 3 rows of nails round the outside, and it was called in the trade 3-row round. And there was a special nail that the fastidious farmers had to get. It was a particular type of nail, a size of nail. It was called a Welsh hob. I can't tell you why. Maybe it originated in Wales, but it was known as the Welsh hob. Yeah. And these 3 rows of nails were round. How they carried them, I don't know, but the weight of them.
Yeah, and they wouldn't have the sort of the stud on the foot, on the heel of them, I mean, they used to be kind of a donkey shape.
Oh, they would. That was on. That was standard. Well. That had to be on it, of course, too. Anyway. Oh, yes. That was the tip, a heel tip, it was called there in it. Right. And there was the suppliers by Lee, but he also purchased, at that particular time, he purchased some of the footwear from a firm in England, a firm called Britons of Bristol. They used to market their footwear under the brand Dryfoot. Just all the farmers would be looking for a boot that would be dry. There was no such thing as Wellingtons then, you see, looking for a dry foot. So some of the farmers, they could buy a pair, and it'd be a bad pair, you see, and they said these bloody things should be called wet foots, you see, to be going back and telling us. Those were, and the price of them at that time, remember, for the good one, the best one, the price was 21 shillings. For this good nail boot. It was by the standards of the day, but it was a really good job now. You could get footwear at half that price. That was the best one. You get a shilling discount off that, and you sell it for £1 net. But they were magnificent quality boots of the type of footwear that they were. They were leather. The top leather was called kip leather. That was the trade name for it. It was the whole hide. And into that it was largely waterproof. Then there was a cheaper variety called split leather. The significance of that being the split of the hide. That's why it's called split leather. It was a much cheaper, it would be considerably cheaper, about 15 shillings.
I forgot to ask you there about the suits. What price were the makings of the suit?
Oh, yes. The price of a good quality serge suit the fabric was made by a very famous firm of wool weavers in Bradford, Croydales of Bradford. They were the best makers in the trade. And one of their suits, lengths, trimmed, would be about £3. Thanks very much. And the tailor would charge you about £1 for making it, and you'd have it for about £4 or £4 and little over it, of that order, But you'd have a suit there that, without a doubt, that Croydale serge, you just couldn't wear it out. It only wear forever. It was magnificent quality. Magnificent quality. And largely, it was the suitings that time were usually navy. Practically every man wore a navy suit. And rarely not one might wear black, but you could say 90% of it would be navy. Navy serge.
I recollections of old men all right wearing navy suits, and it'd be a shine on them.
There would, quite a shine on them there. And some of them, if they weren't a good quality, if it wasn't now Croisdale's serge, you could depend on them, but if they weren't a good quality dye in them, well dyed, they would tend to turn green across the shoulders. There. That was the way that after some time, that was the hallmark of the poor quality one. After a couple of years it would turn green, fade into green there. That was the story.
Yeah. Ladies' shoes and children's shoes, you'd have stocked them as well.
Yes, yes. They were generally purchased through the wholesale trade. They were imported. There was very hardly, even at that time, very few people in Ireland making children's footwear. And the children's footwear came in from England, and Todd Burns or Arns would be the importers of them, and we would in turn buy them there.
I was just wondering now about the local shoemaker. Would he not have made you? You wouldn't have a contract with them?
No. The local shoemaker here hardly ever made shoes. They made clogs. Man up the street here, lived up the street where Burns supermarket is, Joe Ellis. He made clogs there. He purchased the clog top, imported that, or he imported it from somebody that sold it to him prepared, and then he purchased the wooden bottom from somewhere else. Somebody in, there must have been some timber people, and it was cut out ready and all, and he assembled the two, put the two together, finished them off there. And the clogs were a considerable trade. They were, for a while it was difficult to wear them because of the special way you had to walk in them. You sort of had to have a rolling gait. You couldn't just walk in a pair of clogs as you walk in your shoes or I walk in my shoes. You wouldn't get by that way at all. It'd be very awkward for you. And after a little bit of practice, you managed to walk this way. I think they used to describe it as a sort of a rolling gait. This was but they were extensively used as a cheaper form of footwear, and they were very warm and very comfortable.
That's what they say.
Yes, very warm and comfortable. When you got used to them. That took a little bit.
In selling ordinary material now, how would you have measured it? You know, say someone wanted 2 yards of flannelette.
Well, we measured it here on a yardstick. Or a yard measure, I should say, excuse me. That's a yard measure. It's exactly a yard here.
Yeah, how old would that be now?
This, well, I can't tell you, but Victoria Regina's stamp is on it here anyway. Yeah. And a replica of her crown, VR. And that was put on it by the people that were in charge of the weights and measures, the RIC at that day, to see that you were giving your customers proper measure, that they weren't been defrauded, and they'd come and check it.
Yeah.
Often.
Yeah.
And this stamp was in it. I think now that stamp was left on. Now, if they discovered that you had cut a quarter of an inch or a half an inch off it or something, in other words, giving only 34 or 35 inches measure, they would obliterate this measure off it altogether. I believe they used to keep the yardstick or take it.
Yeah.
To just remove this
stamp.
Obliterated the stamp.
Yeah.
And then some other fellow would come along and he would see the stamp wasn't on it and he'd be prosecuted.
Yeah. Right, Victoria
Crown Regina.
Yeah.
Victoria Regina. I don't know, there's a 5 there. I don't know what the significance of that is.
Yeah, yeah.
But it had to have that stamp. Had to have that stamp on it.
So
now,
that's here as long as the shop is it? As long as your father
It is, yes, it is. It was here when my father bought this shop.
Yeah.
Was on it there. There's another one down. There are a couple of them around in the varying counters because to provide for, there's one up there to provide for all the measuring that was been done at that time. Now there was also another method of measuring. It wasn't practiced very much in the country, but it was practiced greatly in Dublin. It's a yardstick. Yardstick. And you held it, a special way of doing it, you see. You put it down here, got the material, and you put the stick down to hold the material to keep it from slipping, and then you, with the right hand, and held it there, and with your left, you pulled up the material here, just the length of the yard. And you became very skilled at it after a while. It took a little while to learn it, but after a while you became very skilled, and it was very fast. Now you could measure goods much more quickly with the yardstick. Now when I was in Dublin, where it was big, very, very big lot of measuring to be done, I was in a piece goods department, and there was a big flow of measuring to be done, big flow of customers and measuring to be done. You used the yardstick, we always used the yardstick, and you could fly at it, you see. So much so that customers would see you going so fast, and some of them that might be a little bit doubtful, wondering whether they're getting proper measure, you see. And there was also yard measures on the counter, so you'd take it down and measure it slowly and show the lady that she was getting her 3 yards or 5 yards or 10 yards, whatever she was buying.
Yeah. Could you talk to me about ledgers and day books and handling cash in general?
Well, the system here that my late father always had and persists to this day is every customer got a receipt there, and we still give them. They're very old-fashioned now, and very few exist. This is the receipt. If they buy anything of any consequence at all, they get this receipt. Show them what the money of the amount of the bill and the amount tendered, and that's the way. Now that was issued in each of the 3 departments here, down below, and out in the other house next door. Now, having done that, the assistant concerned then put the cash into this cash carrier, the Lamson cash carrier here, which runs down to one line down, the 3 lines, one down to that lower end of the shop, one over there, and one going out to the other house there. And the person then in the office took that out and looked at the bill and handed back any change that might be necessary. That was the way the cash was handled. At the end of the day then the dockets were all checked against the cash, and hopefully they all went into balance, and that was that. Yeah,
so there was somebody in the office here, as we'll call it, and all of these containers.
Yes. Well, I was usually here, and if I wasn't there in that office, somebody else came along to take my place and give cash. There used to be a big flow of business at that time, and the cash desk was quite a busy place. And a number of, apart from that then, people of course purchase goods on credit, and which was always a feature of our business, and had to be in those very, very bad times when the farming community were very, very poor, exceedingly poor, particularly in County Leitrim, where the farms were very small. And there was a considerable amount of money sent out on credit. In that event, the customer also got a bill of the goods they purchased, and it was then written into a counter book here, and from there it was transferred into what we call a day book. Why a day book, I don't know, because it's only written up once a month, and from there into the ledger of the person's account concerned. And the country people paid their accounts. They would never be squared. The bulk of them were never squared in the sense that they were completely paid off. There was always cash paid on account, and there was a balance brought forward. And the cash payments usually came around the time they were selling their cattle about twice a year. In October, we had a very big fair here on the 19th of October each year, and another equally big, or bigger even still, on in February. It was called Monaghan Day on the 25th of February, a very celebrated fair. And usually the farmers were put into some little degree of funds at that time, and they'd usually come along and pay £10 off their account, or £5. That way it was credited. But the accounts were never square. There were accounts in those books, looking back at them, they went on for 40, 50 years.
So you kept carrying it forward?
Yes, always a balance on, but finally it would be squared off at some stage.
Could you just explain to me the principle, on what
the cash carrier works?
Yeah.
Well, it's really on the catapult principle. It's just basically a catapult, and it's rigged up in such a way that it's pulled. The cash carrier is hitched on to the elastic, which is the catapult, and it's pulled back, fairly back, and then it's released. A spring releases it, and it just flies down or travels down along the wire down to the other apartment concerned, the other end of the house. It's the essence of simplicity. Children long we used to come in here and they used to regard it as something terribly sophisticated and terribly complicated, but actually it's not. It's just a catapult, plain and simply.
You can't control the speed of the
you
container.
can control the speed. Yeah. You can control the speed by the length of the pull, as you would when we were children, pulling, using a catapult and slinging stones where we shouldn't have been throwing them, children.
Yeah, you were also saying the last year that there was another type of one previous
there
to
was. That's the second generation of cash carriers. There was an earlier one. It was the very, very old altogether, and there was only, even in my youth and working, there was only one in Ireland. That was in the firm I worked in Todd Burns, and it was, the cash was carried in a round wooden ball, and it was simply ran along on a line composed of about 10 strands of wire forming a semicircle, and it was a gravity business. You wanted a high ceiling, you had a little pulley, and you put your wooden ball into a little receptacle here in the department and pulled it away up towards the ceiling. When it came up so high, there was a little trapdoor which opened, and it fell into this line, and it rolled rather laboriously from the department to the cash desk. And conversely then, of course, there had to be a second line, high at the cash desk up to the ceiling and coming back down to the department. In there. It was the very first one, and strange, it was made by the same firm called Lamson, Lamson Paragon of London, that made that one.
Right.
Then there was a third one, the more modern one of all, and it was vacuum, and it ran through tubes under the floor, and was purely on a vacuum principle. There's one in Cleary still, though it's usable, but I don't think they use it. They've gone over to cash registers, but the system is there. It was the third and last system, as far as I understand, of cash carriers in commercial premises.
Yeah. What did you ever get paid in anything other than cash? Did people?
Yes, I'm glad you asked me that. I hadn't thought of it. We did frequently. Well, I shouldn't say frequently. We did sometimes. All businesses here at that time when I was young, they all had a couple of acres of land, and they always kept a cow or two. And that was the system here. We had some acres of land and kept a couple of cows. And we had customers who would maybe have a surplus of hay. And they come in, we wouldn't have hay, and they come in to my late father and they tell him this, and he wanted the hay, and he'd be glad to have it in, and to bring in a couple of cartloads of hay or whatever he could spare, and he would pay them a going rate for it. As well as that, sometimes they might come in, if they were here selling potatoes in the market, and they didn't succeed in selling all the potatoes they had, they might come up to him and ask him would he take them. They would owe money here, and he would take the potatoes from them because we need them anyway. And they were taken in payment in kind. They got credit for it, and that was that. And it worked out to the advantage of both people.
Yeah.
He wanted the potatoes, and they would want to get credit for it and reduce their account.
What about models? That you'd use in the window?
Yes, we used to have those fairly extensively, as much so as they are today, more so than we have them today, because we haven't many of them here at all. But there were models and half models. There were models just of a lady's bust, rather to show off a jumper, a small one like that. There were a lot of those used at that time. And there were always another models to show off hats. Those ladies' hats that were so